Elliot Friedman said this is going to happen, Toronto getting a 4th round pick and sending Garrett Sparks, the backup goaltender to start last year, back to the Golden Knights. This has been confirmed now moments ago by the Toronto Maple Leafs on their Twitter account. Leafs acquire a 4th round pick in the 2020 NHL draft for David Clarkson, and Garrett Sparks also included in the deal. So the Leafs selling the 4th round pick in exchange for David Clarkson and then adding Garrett Sparks to the mix. Got it good, and since you understood, for some instant analysis, we bring in Faizal,
well,
Mike Zigomanis.
I've been here. We bring in Mike
Hockey
Zigomanis.
Central at noon. I just wanted to introduce you. You were on camera,
yes, thank you.
Sitting beside Mike in a wonderfully colored coat.
Yeah, like
welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
So your immediate reaction to this, obviously Clarkson, for those who don't know, would go to LTIR.
Yeah, so he's not on the cap, as we know right now.
Yeah.
With Sparks this past year, he had a little bit of a rough kind of, I'd say, middle of the season towards the end, and kind of knew this was going to happen. I think maybe during his interview, when he said, well, maybe I'll be ready next year, and kind of backtracked 10 seconds later. After that, it kind of all fell apart for him.
Yeah.
But new start for him. He'll have a chance to play some games in Vegas maybe, going in as a 3rd. But yeah, new start
Seemed like
for him.
a tough start just for Garrett Sparks when, Kyle Dubas and the coaching staff move a guy who was, it ended up being pretty popular guy, Carolina. Good backup goaltender in Curtis McElhinney. Sparks is pushed into that after the Calder Cup. People are expecting a lot from him, and it just kind of never really got on track.
No, you have to keep him. It was the right move by the Leafs to keep him, and not shipping him off, or he would have got picked up on waivers.
Right.
But it's one of those things where, you bring the young guy in, wins a Calder Cup, deserves to be there, and then this happens a lot in the league, and this is one of those situations where you kind of throw your confidence in a guy, it doesn't work out. But at the same time, when he says ready for next year and he backtracked, he just knew he wasn't going to start again. So, you saw a lot of the Twitter reaction, you saw a lot of the media saying, this guy's not even ready to play. But, you got to give him a little bit of break on those comments towards the end of the season.
Right. Well, how much harder is that just playing in Toronto in general, having that media specifically on you, right?
Is harder.
It's a backup goalie that people are talking about, right?
Everyone knows what the situation is like here, and this market, Chicago, New York, Montreal, any Canadian team for that matter, the spotlight's on you at all times. Whether you're a backup goaltender or you're a guy warming the bench, you're always looked to what are you doing for us lately kind of thing, and where it's the thing where it's unfair at times, but I don't mind the move by both teams in this trade.
Right, and the Leafs had picked up Michael Neuwirth, and they had Hutchison already, so there's your backup goaltender talk of the day. And the Leafs
but it's an important position, though. It's not just, if you look at the last 5 years, I don't know about this past season, but starting goaltenders, they don't get past those 60 games.
Yeah.
It's important. Those are the teams that have won. So you need a guy that's going to come in and step in for 20 games and win you some. Maybe not to, run away with it, but they got to at least hold you in a race.
Well, if you win 6 more than you lose in this day and age in the NHL, that gets you into that's the difference between the playoffs and sitting at home and watching the playoffs.
And for the Leafs, it would have been the difference between home ice in that first-round series versus Game 7 in an opposing barn.
You can look at that one situation is the backup goaltender. Maybe if he would have had a couple extra better starts, would the Leafs have had home ice in that first round? Those are one of the issues when you're kind of looking back at your season.
Right. I was just trying to say it wasn't as sexy as some of the RFA talk that we were scheduled to have with you when we called you in, but decided to bring you in a little early when we heard about the Leafs making this deal. So let's get to that RFA talk, and let's get to that microscope, because we had Mitch Marner on the show last week, and he was in a tough position where he was doing something for his charity and wanted to bring attention to his charity, but knew damn well that we had to ask about the situation with the Leafs. Kyprios last week said, the first pressure point could be around December 1st. How do you see this working out for Mitch Marner, and does some of that shine that we see from Toronto on Garrett Sparks affect how slowly this is moved, or is that just what the RFA market is?
There's a lot of talk about what's actually happened, right? You look, there's a lot of talk around what last summer did they approach the Leafs about that $9.5 million number. Nobody really knows. Throughout the season, they said they didn't want to talk. Then you have Matthews sign that big deal, and that's when everything kind of blew up a little bit, if you can remember the timeline. And it's like, So you got to know that number wasn't discussed with him during the season, because you know as a player and your agent, when that number comes out with Matthews, that's a number you're kind of looking at, or wasn't even discussed. So you take Matthews getting signed, that's when kind of everything went sideways. And I see this going, into training camp, maybe into the season. But in saying that, the Leafs definitely have leverage in this situation. Most teams have leverage with any RFA coming out of their entry level. What do you want to do? I mean, you saw the Nylander situation, the way that all played out. And it's nothing against Europe or with Russia or any Swedish league, European league, but the NHL is the best league in the world.
Right.
All the guys want to play in this league. And when you have 6, 7 million, 9 million staring at you for 5, 6 years, you want to sign that deal. You want to play in the best league. You're playing in the best hockey market in the world here in Toronto, and that's a situation with Nylander and Marner right now, and it could go into the season.
Do you see an offer sheet at all? Not just with the Marner situation. We have so many names that we continue to list off in this RFA game here that are so valuable, so good, so skilled, that could obviously make an impact on some team and could help move the needle in any of this. Do you see that being a thing? Because we thought after the Sebastian Aho offer sheet maybe came out that this would maybe start getting the dominoes to fall slowly, but nothing has moved since then at all.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk around it, and a lot of hype throughout the last couple months and season into the playoffs. But if it hasn't happened yet, I can't see it happening. The Aho offer sheet was kind of interesting the way they set up the contract. Hopefully, Carolina ownership wouldn't kind of match that kind of money up front.
Right.
So you're not going to be able to do that with Leafs. I want to say they kind of have this space and they can have some flexibility to move players, but it's that move's not going to work here in Toronto because they can kind of match any money up front. But I don't see it happening. This is going to drag on unless they do come up. And I mean, if you're a Marner at the same time, what's to say he's not worth what Matthews is worth? Right. And I understand what everyone's saying. I don't know what your thoughts are and what number you're at with him, but everyone's saying 9 million, 9.5 max for Marner. He's not worth anything more. But on the other side, I'm part of the group that's saying, why shouldn't he get what Matthews gets? Right. He hasn't done anything not to deserve that.
Well, let me ask you this, because you've played in the league before, and not at the level that we're talking about with these guys, but other levels will be affected by how much money he makes. And in a hard cap system, there is going to be a squeeze. And one of the questions that I asked Marner was, does he have to worry about how good the team around him will be when he's signing a deal? And I know that's not fair to the player, but when you're the last guy to sign, when Tavares gets his $11 million, when Matthews gets what he got, does Marner have to think about that at all? Because it seems like Leaf fans want him to think about that, and I'm not so sure that's fair to the player.
Yeah, every player wants their money. They want to win. You get a hometown guy, they want to play here, but at the end of the day, they want to get paid. And now they want to get paid out of their first contract, out of their entry level. That's going to make it difficult. This is a great situation that's happening here in Toronto for the league to look at, where all these big contracts are coming. You have Nylander coming in at $7 million. Now you're getting 11 plus. Now you're getting another guy that wants 11. It's just you can't put together a team like this. And when you talk about hard cap system, I think we've seen now that it's tough for a lot of teams. It's tough for teams that can spend money. It's tough for teams that make even one mistake. Mm-hmm. So the league's definitely going to look at it. If you want to take the player side of it, you go to the soft cap system. You go to your luxury tax, whatever you want to call it. I'm part of I like to think of maybe having one guy on your team that makes whatever you guys want. You can sign for whatever you want. Mm-hmm. And the players that you draft and you keep in your system, you give a break. Either 80%, 75% of that number goes towards your cap. But the league's not going to want that. The league likes their hard cap. It's cost certainty is a big thing. Values are going up, and this system right now is great for the league.
All right, so let me ask you about the number, because Cap Friendly, who does a wonderful job on figuring out how much is available, has just sent out a tweet that I found interesting as you brought up the number with Marner. And here's how it goes. After acquiring Clarkson's contract, we now show the Leafs with a projected cap of just over $82 million, or $700,000 above the ceiling of $81.5 million, with a roster of 22. Now you add Horton and Clarkson to the LTIR, potentially exceed the ceiling by as much as $10.5 million. So when you send them down, are we going to have enough money to get Marner done there?
Well, whether they have the space or not, if somebody offer sheets Marner, you have to believe that they're going to match it. and then you make your adjustments after. If you look at
Right.
Vegas right now, they went over. They have to make adjustments right now. Now is when your pro scouting comes in,
Right.
your player development. You got to know who you have in your system. You're going to have to go and find value players. So you have all these other guys in your system, are all as part of management that needs to help you. It's not just assembling the best team. You make a mistake, oh well, write the contract off. There's a lot more moving parts now.
Right.
Teams are going to have to get creative, and we've seen that with the contracts, the signing bonuses, and you're going to have to rely on a lot more people to put your team together. And that's kind of exciting as a fan, you know, different moving parts. You get
So if you're
teams-
playing in the
Movement is
minors
fun.
right
Yeah,
now
yeah.
and you have a decent deal, you're thinking, hey, give them as much as you possibly
yeah.
can because I might get my shot.
Yeah.
if
Well,
this
here's the
happens.
thing: you got Trevor Moore, right? And everyone's kind of, oh, how can you play? Guy plays 15 games and you give him 700 or 750 for 2 years? And I'm
Right.
surprised we don't see more of those contracts. We're seeing a little bit with the Leafs, but if you're under stress right now, you have to sign these guys and maybe take a flyer on a couple of guys in the minors that haven't played. Guys you think they can kind of fit in spots.
Yeah.
Because that's what this league's coming to right now.
Yeah, you saw Udon in Montreal signs the one-way deal too, just over $700,000. That's the kind of player that you're talking about. You can pay him, and he plays in the AHL, and then when you need him, if something happens,
He's up there ready to go.
You bring him up because a lot of teams are in that position right now.
Right.
Something's definitely in the next CBA talks. Something's definitely going to change. Either they're going to put a cap on a second contract, which is
Right.
I think what the league's going to most likely try to push, where it's you have to sign a bridge deal or you're capped at a certain percentage over what you make. And that's not going to go. That's leading to another lockout. But the league's going to try. The league's going to try to.
Yeah.
Those are bad words.
No one wants to hear lockout, but we've had a lockout every year since I signed in 2001. I believe there's been a lockout at every CBA negotiation.
yeah.
So
well, now you're not paying guys for what they've done. You're paying them for what you think they're going to do.
and
that's way more
but
dangerous.
it's even getting worse. It almost seems like it's getting. I mean, that's the way it's always been in professional sports. But now with the hard cap system, I think it's kind of getting even worse right now. And it's trying to fit everybody under. I was looking at the cap of the Leafs today, kind of seeing what they can move, and it's tough. Who do you add? Who do you take away? You have to save $100,000 everywhere. When I was in Pittsburgh in 08-09,
Yeah.
I know when Ray Shearer was putting the team together, every $100,000 counted. You had Crosby and Malkin on those big deals. That's whatever 13% of your percentage of cap, and it's tough to put a team together with that system.
Crazy. Thanks for jumping in early. We know we were standing out in the hall like, get in here.
Yeah, I was
Something's
trying to get
happening.
I had my coffee. I didn't have a chance to put milk in my coffee. Come on.
All right, next time we'll give you a little time
All
to
right,
breathe before we get in here. All right.
Thanks
for doing this.
Thanks a lot for having me on.